Welcome to this module on organizational change. Change is our key concept for this lecture. Let's get right to it. First and foremost, when is there resistance to change? Surprisingly, change resistance takes place before change, and it takes place after change, but resistance is usually lowest during change. There's a driving force for change before it happens. And when it first comes out, we experience much resistance to it because people don't like change in organizations. Organizations, especially when things are doing well, don't want to change what they're doing. They want to stay on the same path that they're on. But once the change has been initiated, then the forces that be, the organization as a whole, understands it needs to get in line and start preparing for the change and do the things necessary for the change. So resistance is actually low. But after the change has taken place and people are in their new environment or in their new routines, then comes a longing for the way things used to be, the good old days, and resistance for change or for what has taken place comes back up into play. But overall, during change, during the process of change, resistance against the change is low because everyone's trying to keep abreast of what's going on. So, what are the things that resist change? First and foremost, direct costs. We need to spend money to make change. Next is saving face. Usually if change has to take place, it's because something's happening. And people don't want to change because the way things used to be must have been working before, and if we have to change, that means something might have been wrong with them. So we don't want to change the way they were. We have to save face. First and foremost, in my belief, is the fear of the unknown. People are afraid of the dark. Why? Because they don't know what's in it. People are afraid of change because why? They don't know what's going to take place. Furthermore, breaking routine. I've been at this job for 10 years. I know what I'm doing. I've been doing it for 10 years. I don't want to change what I'm doing. Breaking routine has an effect on change. Next is incongruent systems. Incongruent rewards. When things are set up to work and run a certain way, if we change, then we have to change the entire system. We have to change the way things are rewarded. We have to change possibly even the punishments that come along to go with the organization. And finally, incongruent team dynamics. Once a system and a team is set up and working well, if we change something about the organization, then the dynamics in the team itself may have to change. As an example of this, with the introduction of Homeland Security, the FBI had to change. FBI had been slow to shift from a law enforcement to a domestic intelligence agency. It was slow to do this due to incongruent systems. Career paths in the FBI, the reward systems, and the decentralized structure of the FBI was set up for law enforcement. Now that they are doing primarily domestic intelligence, these things need to change. If the reward systems are still currently how many people are arrested by an officer, not how much domestic intelligence is gathered, it is not going to benefit the employee. Therefore, there is an incongruency in the system. Next would be the breaking routine. Unfamiliar with intelligence gathering. If someone has been with the FBI for 10 years and they're really good at law enforcement, now they need to put down their gun and possibly pick up a wiretap. This is a different type of business. This is a different direction. Therefore, they're unfamiliar with it. They have to break their old routines and start new ones. And finally, saving face. In the past, the FBI had a turf war with the CIA over who was doing what type of job. Now that the Homeland Security is introduced, there is some saving face to be done. Who's in charge of what? When it comes to what the Homeland Security, the CIA, and the FBI does. All these things have caused resistance to change within the FBI as they go through this process. What can be done to help in change? First and foremost is creating a sense of urgency for the change. So the employees must be informed and have a driving force that lets them know that the change needs to be done and it must be done soon. Creating this urgency is most difficult when organizations are doing well. This could be for several simple reasons. If we are doing well, if it's not broke, why do we need to fix it? Why do we need to change it? But change must be real and not contrived. So the need for change, the urgency, has to be shown to be real and not contrived to help move the employees and the organization in the new direction. Now, something to look at is customer-driven change. When change is based on customer-driven reasons, it is usually a little easier to show and convince the employees why the change must be made, because the consumers is the driving force for the business to earn money. And without the consumers, the business doesn't make money, and the employees, therefore, don't make money. So if it's a consumer-driven change, there are adverse consequences for the firm, and the human element energizes the employees. So there are certain things that can be done to minimize resistance to change. First and foremost is communication. This is the highest priority and first strategy for minimizing resistance to change. It improves urgency and it reduces uncertainty, the fear of the unknown for the employees and for the organization as a whole when communication takes place. The problem with communication and most of the things that minimize change is it takes time and it can be costly. Next is learning. Learning provides new knowledge and skills, including coaching and action learning. Helps break the old routines and adapt the new roles, and helps the employees know that they're going to be able and capable of performing in the new roles that they're going to be given with the changes taking place. Problems, again, is potentially time-consuming and costly. Another important thing is to have employee involvement. As mentioned before, when employees are involved in decision-making and they're involved in goal setting, it gives them a sense of ownership. So if the employees are involved in the change process, it gives them ownership in the change itself. It helps save face and reduce fear of the unknown for the employees, and it can include task forces and future search events for the employees to be involved in. Problems, again, can be time-consuming and give potential conflicts in the change process. If need be, stress management can be introduced in the organization to help overcome resistance to change. Stress management could include psychology. It can include people to come in and help people understand that the change is not bad. When communication and training and involvement do not resolve stress, then specific stress management can be introduced to do these things. It can be more motivating for the change. It can give less fear of the unknown, and it has fewer direct costs. Problems, again, time-consuming, expensive, and doesn't help everyone. Stress management is usually given only to the employees or the divisions within an organization that show that they need this extra help. The next step would be negotiation. When people clearly lose something because of the change and they won't otherwise support it. So they need to understand that there's going to be benefit for each individual employee that is still with the organization. So negotiation is a part of this as well. It influenced by exchange and reduces direct costs. Problems can be expensive. And another thing is it can gain compliance, but not always commitment. Last on our list would be coercion. When change must happen and employees don't want change to happen, it's going to happen anyway. When all else fails, coercion needs to be put into place. Firing people, having layoffs, is not a preferable way of doing things, but the organization as a whole must survive, and therefore coercion sometimes must be used. Once change has taken place within an organization, we talked before that is when we have a reintroduction of a fight or actions against that, or people wanting to return to the good old ways. This is when we need to refreeze the desired conditions. So before we have change, we may have feedback against change. During the change, everyone's scrambling to stay abreast of what's taking place, and then afterwards we might get feedback again about how they want things to revert back to the way they used to be. So in keeping this in mind, we need to freeze the new conditions and make sure that the organization understands that this is the way things are now going to be. We do this by realigning organizational systems and team dynamics with the desired changes. This is done by altering rewards to reinforce the new behaviors for the change, give a feedback system, and help employees learn how they are doing, provide support for the new behavior patterns, and give good, supportive, constructive criticism to help them be on track with the new way things are to be. Strategic vision for the change. There needs to be a vision of the desired future state. Change can't be done or take place just because we know it needs to be there. There needs to be a plan put in place. And in doing so, the top management usually needs to be the one that sets out a vision of where the organization is going with this change. And in doing so, this new strategic vision identifies critical success factors for the change, and it minimizes employee fear of the unknown by giving them a goal to reach in the change process, and it clarifies role perceptions. Now, during the change process, something that really helps out is change agents. Change agents, they apply transformational leadership. They help develop a vision, they communicate the vision. And it doesn't matter if someone is in a management position or employee, they can still be a change agent. They can do that by acting consistently with the vision and build commitment to the vision for themselves and with those they work with. This also applies transactional leadership, aligning employee behavior through awards, resources, and feedback. So to help get through the change process, or to start the change process, one of the best things to use is an action research approach. Change needs both action and research focus. Action orientation is when we look at solving problems and change the organizational system, whereas a research orientation separately, we look at concepts that guide the change and use data needed to diagnose problems, identify intervention, and evaluate change for the opportunities. So the best way to perform change or to reach a change status is to combine action and research into one single approach. Another thing that really helps out in the change process is the appreciative inquiry approach. In doing so, we direct participants' attention away from problems and towards the group's potential and positive elements. So the things that are not going well, that we need to change away from, we no longer keep that the focus of our attention or the attention of the participants. We now focus on what is going to benefit the organization as a whole and the positive elements and how we're going to reach that new status. This reframes relationships around the positive rather than being bogged down in the problems that were the cause of the change to begin with. Finally, let's look at the 4D model of this approach. First is discovery, and that is what is, discovering the best of what is currently. And then dreaming, or second D, forming ideas about what might be. So we take what is, and then we look at that and find what might be. We move on to designing, engaging in dialogue about what should be. So what might be could be a very broad spectrum, but what should be narrows the field down to what should actually be in place. And then finally, delivering objectives about what will be. So we take what is, we look at the big picture, so what might be in any circumstance, cut away to what should be there, and then from what should be there, we decide what we can actually do as an organization and make a plan to deliver or bring about what will be in the future. This is our 4D model. Finally, with this approach towards change and with organizational theory, I want to leave you with a quote from Andrew Carnegie. He said, "Take away my people and leave me my factories, and what I will have is grass growing in my factories before long. But if you take away my factories and leave me my people, before long, I'll not only have my factories, but they'll be bigger and better than they were before." Organizations are built around people. It's a people structure, and it's a people environment, and it's the focus of what organizations are for. And I leave this with you and I hope you've enjoyed this module, and I do so, and we'll see you next time. Thank you.